thing supposed to be? That's a paperclip. What's it look like?
How could you not love a man that drives around Weatherfield in a green Vauxhall Nova with a giant paperclip on the roof? Should never have killed him off. Big mistake.
Here, hang on, you! Look what you've done!
I was rather concerned because it was a heart attack. I was then just coming up to being 64 years old, at which age my father died. And I thought, oh, this is a bit near the knuckle, this.
People really grieve when you kill off a character.
And you know, after a death like that, a lot of flowers arrived. The studio, people send wreaths and things.
You know, these are extended members of our family.
I was delighted to see Derek Wilton go.
I was actually cheered. I thought, yes, come and act a few more. Get rid of Gale. Please get rid of Gale, play it. I mean, I was very upset when he didn't do that.
I doubt Gale would thank you for that.
I thought Derek Wilton and his garden gnome had far outlived their usefulness. I think actually the garden gnome incident was the worst bit of Coronation Street ever.
But don't you see the life in them? I mean, each one has got its own personality. I can see all sorts of things in that.
The gnome thing went on too long. I didn't really like that. But I did feel very sorry, and I think it was inevitable that Mavis had to go too, and that was a real loss.
I think poor old Mavis is out there, sitting out there all on her own going, well, I don't really know.
Relax, Mavis. The rest of our lives start here, as they say.
Brian Park was very brave killing off Derek, but he was inundated by complaints. In fact, his own relatives wouldn't speak to him at one point and says, we can't go down the British Legion up in Scotland because, you know, people were rowing with him, there were social pariahs.
Brian, even though he's going, a storyline to my exit. So he told me this the other day. I don't know what it is. I truly don't know what it is. And he won't tell me. I said, oh, please tell me, Brian. He said, no, no, you'll have to wait. You don't go with a whimper. So we'll wait and see.
I bet you in years to come, he's going to be remembered as the guy who created the Battersbys, rather than the guy who killed off Derek Wilton.
Do you want out fetching? No, I do not want out fetching. So just try and keep your thieving little hands to yourself for 5 minutes. We meant shopping.
When the Battersbys first came on screen, everybody was going, get rid of them, they're no good, they're this, that and the other. And, you know, it was almost like questions were raised in the house.
I loathe the Battersbys.
They're not quite as cartoon-like as they were when they first started, so they are growing on me, but I wouldn't like to go out for a drink with them.
I think it was right to cull some people. I think it was right from a commercial point of view to move it on to another generation. But when I want a Salford edition of Neighbours, I'll ask for one.
We always get blamed for everything. It were our fault flipping First World War broke out.
And therefore I don't feel as well disposed towards it as I did 10, 15, 20 years ago.
There was a huge communal reaction against the Battersbys. I wanted them to hit the ground running and make a huge impact, and that they did.
It took quite a few months, I think, for the whole family, as we got sort of more and more scenes and work with all sorts of different people, to be able to bring out some sort of human qualities in the characters.
They're real, you know, that's how families communicate most of the time. They don't listen, do they? Well, ours never did, you know. You just let off steam and shout at each other because these are the people you can be at your realest with.
Now get upstairs to your room out of his sight! No! I want to talk to your father. Now get lost!
I won't! It's my house as much as yours!
Toy had a face on that. My God. I mean, she's a little... And Janice, the mum, she's great and all, and she looks like Zippy out of Rainbow, doesn't she?
When you go out, you know, in real life, people say, oh, you're not actually that fat, are you? Or, oh, you've got lipstick on. You know, they can't believe it.
It's doing its job. Everybody's talking about it. They're there, they'll stay there, love them or not. They're the people you love to hate. It works. Clever casting, clever characters.
I like this street, and I want to stay here.
We're staying here!
If you take Ken Barlow as a classic Coronation Street character, okay, born in 1939 at number 3. 1962, he married his first wife, and they moved to number 9. They have twins, little Peter and Susan. It's all very sweet. But they're only there a few years, and then his wife electrocutes herself and starts a fire which guts the whole masonette. So Ken and the twins move back into number 3, which is the house that he was born in. He doesn't like that very, very much. So he moves into number 1, with Albert Tatlock. And then, in 1973, he marries Janet Reed, and she doesn't like it in number 1, so they rent number 11. And in 1977, his wife Janet kills herself. And then in 81, he marries Deirdre. Uncle Albert dies, then Ken has an affair. He's thrown out of the house by Deirdre. He then buys back number 1 Coronation Street, the old family home. And if we take it through for the next 20 years, he's probably going to live in every other house.
The bride. The groom.
Love and
The best man.
love and marriage.
The church.
Like a horse and
The cake.
I tell you.
And the weddings from hell. Next Thursday, 9 ITV. Wicked television.
Happy birthday, James.
One today. You'll be collecting your pension soon.
Have you got one?
Yeah.
Who with?
Standard Life, of course.
Why?
Well, for a start, they've been around since 1825, and they've got over 4 million customers.
So you're good at
and
making important decisions.
we like to think so, James.
So what's with these then?
Walking out of the door, I'm on my way. Can you tell me just where I'm going? Motivational skills, don't have a clue what to do, but my mind's in motion. Come on, and tell me why you're staring. Come on, it must be what I'm wearing. Come on, and tell me why's it taking so long for you to recognize and stop?
What are these? New pretzel flips from Nestle. Crunchy, savoury pretzels covered in chocolate.
Pretzels? Covered in chocolate? You're joking, right? I mean, who in their right mind would want pretzels covered in chocolate?
Nestle pretzel flips. You like them, but you won't know why.
You couldn't give them away.
Now there's a toothpaste that gives you the most complete protection available. Colgate Total. The minute you stop brushing, bacteria start spreading, even below the gum line, where serious problems can start. Long-lasting Colgate Total is different. Its antibacterial shield not only protects against plaque, tartar and cavities between brushing, it's now even proven to limit the build-up of bacteria below the gum line. Colgate Total. So advanced, it even protects below the gum line.
Take a break with our sensational Viagra Readers Survey. Take a break with our expose on how shop assistants mislead us. Take a break and win a Renault Clio or a supermarket sweep. If life's a juggling act, take a break. Out now.
Well, may your God forgive you.
They never had the chance.
Because I know I never will.
To say goodbye. Liverpool won Monday at 9.
It takes days of care, hard work, and attention to detail to prepare Thursday Night Live's studio floor. It has to be clean, because once a week, in lively debate, somebody will wipe the floor with somebody else. Intellectually, of course. Tonight at 10:40 on ITV.
Well, following tonight's discussion in Thursday Night Live, which is about addiction to carnal pleasures, we've highlights of the European Cup Winners' Cup. That's at 11:40 tonight, here on Carlton.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Clint
Britain's agonizing wait for a ruling on those videotapes. New factory closure sees hundreds more jobs lost. Latest raid sets thousands of mink on the loose. The Queen's handshake with the billionaire of Brunei. And so near but so far for Chelsea in Europe. Good evening. President Clinton in the United States are still waiting tonight to learn if his so-called Sex and Lies videotape will be released by Congress to be shown on television for everyone to see. The House Judiciary Committee has been arguing about it now for 3 hours. Democrats say its only purpose would be to embarrass and humiliate the president, though it's still expected that the video will be released probably tomorrow. If it is, it will show Mr. Clinton giving evidence to a grand jury and struggling to answer pointed questions about his affair with Monica Lewinsky. Our Washington correspondent James Mates reports.
The most powerful man on earth is today quite unable to influence events, waiting, like everyone else, to discover whether Republicans in Congress are going to release the videotape of his appearance before a grand jury. On it, he's reported to be angry, even abusive. Much of the discussion is said to be sexually graphic. One who's seen it says its release will be devastating. No wonder, perhaps, he'd rather be talking about education or healthcare.
That's what we ought to be talking about in Washington, D.C., something that will affect the lives of the children of this country.
The Republicans on the committee, still meeting behind this door, have the votes to show the American people their president as they've never seen him before. The debate has been going on all day, much of it, it seems, about the release of other pieces of evidence as well, evidence so salacious it must be censored.
Some people may think that the report or the referral that was sent to Congress by Judge Starr contained details. It wasn't even close. So there are a lot of the salacious details that I just don't think belongs in the public domain.
But damaging evidence coming out in the days ahead. The Democrats say that is all quite deliberate.
They think that we can hemorrhage while they just say that they're being fair about the whole thing and let's get all the information out to the public.
The atmosphere has turned very nasty now with the revelation in a left-wing internet magazine that the man who'll lead impeachment hearings, Republican Henry Hyde, himself had an adulterous affair 30 years ago. Many Republicans now believe the White House has taken the gloves off and is getting back at its enemies with leaks about their private lives. One has gone as far as to ask the FBI to investigate alleged intimidation of Congress.
They have an operation in the White House that is trying to destroy members of Congress in order to intimidate them from doing their duty.
The president's staff deny any involvement, but the stakes here now are very high. The battle is going to be a dirty one. James Mates, News at 10, Washington.
James Mates joins us now live from Washington. James, what's holding up the decision about releasing this videotape?
Well, we're just hearing, I think, that the committee has ended its deliberations for the day, but we don't know what the result of it is. It is quite surprising. It had been thought this morning it would be a formality. There are two possibilities for it having taken so long. One, that Republicans were getting cold feet about releasing the video. The other was that the debate was actually about all the other mass of materials that they have to decide whether they release or don't release. I suspect the answer is that it's the latter, because going in this morning, the Republicans seemed pretty sure what they wanted to do with that videotape. We'll find out pretty soon, but I suspect we're going to get to see that tape within the next 24 hours.
James, given what you say that tape will do to the president, how much more can the man take?
That's a very good question. It must be disheartening, and if what we understand is on the tape turns out to be the case, it also will be very damaging. But the other question, Trevor, is how much more of this can the American people take? Now, polls say that 70% of the American population don't want to see this videotape released. But they can be sure that a lot more than 70% will watch it if it is. But there is a danger in these Republican tactics of a slow release of material that actually people will turn not against the president but against them for the damage that they are doing to the presidency and to the man. So their strategy is not without risk.
James Mates, thank you. More manufacturing job losses in the north of England were announced today, 650 at the battle tank makers Vickers. 1,000 new jobs were announced in the service sector, with an American bank setting up in Cardiff. The Trade and Industry Secretary Peter Mandelson told the unions today he'd be straight with them, but the relationship wouldn't be too close for comfort. Our political editor Michael Brunson reports.
Vickers is the latest British firm to feel the cold wind of a changing market. They've almost completed the re-equipping of the British Army with Challenger 2 tanks, which haven't sold as well around the world as they'd hoped. So the Vickers factory in Leeds, which made arms used in the First World War, and which produced the Second World War tanks named after Sir Winston Churchill, will all but close, with production concentrated at Vickers' Newcastle-on-Tyne plant. That's good news for the North East, where the Prime Minister heard and saw for himself yesterday the effects of other job losses, but Vickers deny any political pressure.
Newcastle is a lower cost factory to run than Leeds, and it has to come down to economics, unfortunately, in the end.
Union leaders said a new government agency was urgently needed to re-employ the likes of the Vickers workers.
And it's all the more reason to speed up work on that so that these skilled people can be redeployed within manufacturing and not lost to productive employment.
A prestigious American bank.
There was some counterbalancing good news. The Welsh Secretary Ron Davies announced that a major American bank will locate its British credit card operation in the new Cardiff Bay development, creating 1,000 jobs. But the Tories said that firms like Vickers, which sell abroad, are being hindered by the government.
We have very high interest rates, a currency which is making it very difficult for us to compete.
The volatile jobs front has raised the temperature at the TUC meeting in Blackpool, where Peter Mandelson, spin doctor turned trade secretary, said that trades unions could legitimately influence government without that relationship getting too close. He himself promised straight dealing.
No grandstanding, no playing to the gallery, no more spin, honest.
From the Prime Minister himself today, no direct comment on the employment news, but one of his spokesmen said that it underlined what the Prime Minister had been saying yesterday about the need to have a workforce as well equipped as possible to deal with rapid change in the workplace. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Downing Street.
The World Health Organization today reported a sharp increase in the incidence of diarrhea in Bangladesh as a result of the floods, and said it expected even more cases in the coming days and weeks. It's appealed for money for medicines and water purification tablets. The disease